I imagine it this way, or that made me just picture it this way.
Yeah.
As I'm driving through this road, I get to a point wherein there's multiple turns. I can go straight, take a right, take a left,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm that stage, but I don't know which one to take. Yeah.
I've seen this happening. A lot of people going through identity crisis, but they're not aware of it. Welcome to brand Nubian podcast, The Sound of Nubia, where we bring to you inspiring personalities and compelling stories like always. In today's episode, I'm going to be with you. My name is Marcin Nejim, and of course we have
Blue over here, Azraq, you already know.
Yes. So in today we're going to speak to you guys about a topic that is very interesting, and every genuine mind has a different definition about it depending on the life that they experience themselves. So today we're going to speak to you guys about identity. You know, I remember one time me and you were talking about identity itself. Yeah.
Right.
And you told me something about the definition itself about identity. Actually, always have to go back to the origin of it.
100%, 100%.
So what was your intake about what is identity itself? What was your definition again?
Yeah, man, before I go into it, this topic is very interesting that we had to make it a series. So this is just the first episode. Stay tuned for the rest. And when you ask me what's my input on identity, man, I'd say it's like a puzzle that gets shaped with time. The more you experience stuff, the more you get to solve that puzzle and put the pieces together. Because it's different pieces, right? You experience new thing, you like this, you don't like this. That's you solving the puzzle. Yeah, but if I was to describe it scientifically as per what Erickson said, it's interplay of biological, psychological, and social factors that contribute to our own sense of self and that evolve over time.
Actually, the scientific definition makes sense. But from my end, I can tell you this. Identity itself is the question that you ask, and then you get deep into the answer for who is the person that you wish to become, and why do you want to become this type of person? And then from there, you start building how do you want to become that kind of person? And then you build the system that everyone start to develop themselves and bring up the identity that they wish to have, right?
Yeah, man, 100%. I agree with you. You know, funny enough, as you mentioned this, I had one of my friends, he basically said the same thing. He's a guy I look up to, who was saying that every time he does something, his future self that he wants to become is like a shadow that's watching him and that's telling him, is this the right move to do or is it not? Am I doing the right things to become that person or not? And that's a question that he always asks himself. And it has to be checked by his future self if it's going to lead him there or not. If it's not, he's not going to do it. If it leads him there, that's how he does it.
Actually reach a level that he already developed himself, the identity that he wished to become, and now he's adding to it, right? So like they say, what you do in your present, it comes in the future. So actually everything that you do in the present, it counts for your future.
100%. So he's forming his habits right now to become that future self.
Exactly.
He's making sure that he checks these habits every day.
Exactly.
Before he does anything.
And this actually takes us to this question, which is, they say there's types of identity and different types of identity, right? If I remember, I've heard something about it. It actually kindly made sense that we can have different types of identity, yeah?
Yeah. It's like, there's multiple identities. There's always your social identity, your cultural identity, you know, your personal identity, and these identities. There's multiple ones. We'll go further and deep into them in our next episodes. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
And today let's focus on the personal one. So yeah, man, personal identity, it's something that you carry along the way. And as we are Nubian right now, and this podcast is Nubiin. Let me ask you this. How did you connect to your Nubian self, and how did that work for you? How did that get started for you? What made you connect with your Nubian self?
Good question. I can tell you this. Before all of that, before I started connecting to my Nubian self, I can say I had to develop, right? There's a development stage. And then in the development stage, then your self-conscious becomes very high. Yeah. So one of the questions that really made me connect to my Nubia roots was one of my dad's friends who was joking around, and then he asked me a question and it actually hit me. They said, "Inta min wen? Ahalak min wen?"
Where you from?
يا تقبيلي انت يا تغرية جدك الكبير منه تاريخك شنو يا ولد. You know, you see this question?
History,
Exactly. So this questions actually hit me, and it actually made sense. So I can go back and research my own history, so I can have that self of belonging. I think every person has to have a self of belonging. he needs to belong to some place. So that's why knowing your history is knowing your future.
100%,
as well.
100%.
You have to know where you come from, right?
Yeah, and you have to pick up on where they left.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that actually made me go back to the Nubian roots, and I figured out that I was Nubian.
Yeah.
And then I discovered my cultural identity.
Yeah.
There is something when our cultural behaviors that comes along, and especially the weddings and the music and the clothes that we put on.
100%.
I think every person start having that cultural identity. It just shows immediately.
100%.
Especially when we put on that jalabiya, as a Nubian, it makes sense. It has a meaning that you carry on with it.
Yeah, it's a different thing when you put on a jalabiya and you don't know the story behind it. Then when you put it on and you know the story behind it, that it comes from your roots and this is how it was made and things like that. So I'd say it was kind of the same situation for me, when I was asked that question, and then from there I just went straight to my dad, like, yo, dad, where are we from? Where do we belong to? Who are we? And that's how my journey started to connect to my Nubian self. You know what it is though? Right now, I'm trying to think of it on a bigger scale. So my question is, when do you start developing your own identity?
I think before everyone started developing their own identity, I would say this. Everyone was born with an identity. So the moment that you were born into this world, you were given an identity from your parents. You were given a name, you were given a religion, you were given 100%. A place to belong to.
100%.
So these three things are very essential for every person. The thing is, while you're growing up in the juvenescence period, you start just adding to this identity that you have, right?
Yes, sir.
And from there, you start noticing things that you like, things that you don't like.
100%.
Right? From there, what happens is this. Most of people, they don't have the idea of this is identity that they were given. So they just continue on and carry on with this identity. You understand?
Yeah, I very much understand.
But the thing is, you start actually developing your own identity when you start to disconnect from the identity that you were given to. Because if you went out in society, just following society, and then you're just trying to be friends with everyone. And I think a lot of people, they going through the same thing, which is being like, we have the social identity, that we said. And there you start to actually forget your own identity because you're trying to please everyone.
What do you mean disconnect from yourself though?
What do I mean to disconnect from myself is you're going through identity crisis. But before we go through identity crisis, I just wanted to hear your intake about it. When do we also start to develop our own identity?
Well, from my point of view, I think we'll start developing our own identity on that turning point. You know what I'm saying? It's like a turning point. It's a point when self-awareness kicks in. And once you start being self-aware of your actions and you start being self-aware of what triggers you, what does it for you, what doesn't do it for you, and these things, that's when you start discovering yourself. And that's when you start realizing, who am I? I like this. I don't like this. I like that. I don't like that. And moving on to the crisis part you're talking about. So crisis, identity crisis, I think everyone goes through crisis, but they just don't know what it's called. There's not enough awareness on that.
True.
Yeah.
True. I've seen this happening, by the way.
Yeah.
I've seen this happening. A lot of people going through identity crisis, but they're not aware of it.
100%.
Which is how I noticed, which is the person right in front of me, he's going through a change in his life.
Yeah.
There is a sense of confusion and uncertainty about their life, about who they are, what kind of person they want to be. This is the part when they start to disconnect from the identity that they were given, right? This position or this stage, this is, I can say that this is an identity crisis, or this person is going through an identity crisis. And I think in society, everyone should know and realize that the person next to him, when is he going through identity crisis and when he's not? So they can be able to help and support, because in this period, they can be easily manipulated.
They're most vulnerable.
Exactly.
And it's just like they're lost. So when you're lost, you don't know the way. If someone shows you a way, you don't know if that's the right way or not.
So you're going to try
the only way.
And you're trying to figure out, but later on you will notice that this is the wrong.
And it's a lot of reasons that cause this identity crisis to happen. But if we were to categorize them, I would say it's usually social pressure, your personal experience, and the developmental stage that you're going through. So allow me to ask you this question, How do you think identity crisis happen? Or from your experience, how did it happen to someone you know, to you?
Nice. So to answer your question, Blue, I think identity crisis, or identity in general, like you said like we said in the first definition, is a puzzle that we put together, right? Let's do this. This example is very nice. I like to use it sometimes, which is everyone likes to drive, right? Most of people like to drive. So you have a destination.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment that you start your engine and go in the road,
Yeah.
until you reach your destination, this is the end, right? So this is
100%.
exactly like life. You were born with an identity and then
The
you
journey
passed away.
ends only when you die.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this period of life, you're always going to be adding to your identity.
100%.
But especially the one that really counts is when you go through your crisis, when you go through identity crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So this part is very essential to be aware of. From there, what happened is, like I said, I noticed a lot of people have going through identity crisis, and I try my best to support them. And I think everyone in society supposed to help them and be supportive to them, because identity
100%.
crisis is not something to joke about, you know?
Yeah.
Because someone is feeling lost. There's loss of who they are,
100%.
right? And why are they living?
100%.
So as people say, it's a period of depression. And this is the part of them being not just lost and having confusion and uncertainty of their life. And there's a lot of changing that's happening in their life.
100%. You know, you just mentioning the road and you driving on the road.
Yeah.
I imagine it this way, or that made me just picture it this way.
Yeah.
As I'm driving through this road, I get to a point wherein there's multiple turns. I can go straight, take a right, take a left, you know, and I'm that stage, but I don't know which one to take. So I'm confused and I'm lost.
Exactly. So anyone that comes in this period,
he tells you this is the right way,
you will take it. So you're
and
easy
this one.
to manipulate.
You're easy to manipulate. You're most vulnerable, like I said.
Yeah.
And this identity crisis, you know, it's also a major turning point in your life. It's like an aftershock effect.
Yeah.
You know, if most of us hear about people who had accidents and so, and when you hear about these people, they tell you, my life before the accident and after the accident is not the same anymore, because that's a turning point. Imagine this. Imagine a wife who has kids and she takes care of her kids, her husband. Imagine her losing her husband. Now she may question, who am I? What's my purpose in life? Or that main role of being a wife is no longer there. So now she lost part of her, is gone. So but she needs to carry on with her life.
She's always going through identity crisis in this moment.
Exactly. She's lost.
Yeah.
Because a main thing that she used to do, a main role of her, a main thing of her, a main identity of her being a wife, her wife identity. Because identity, you can be a son, a student, a father, all different things, right? Her identity as a wife is gone now. That was something taken from her.
Yeah.
So this period is definitely identity crisis. And how do you think we can resolve that? If someone is going through such thing, how can we resolve the identity crisis?
How we can actually resolve this, to answer this question, only as someone who is very wise enough about this situation, and he got out of it with the identity that he wanted to become.
Yeah.
This type of person, he's the only person who can support the person who's going through identity crisis, because everyone, they might make fun of him, right?
Yeah. So you're saying to resolve it, we need to support them.
Support them. So it has to be mental support.
100%.
And of course, as you were saying, how to resolve this identity crisis. After the support, which comes is, you have to have life experience. After the life experience, you actually add a lot to your identity, right? You said a really good example. You're driving, and there is different turns, right? So the most important thing that you have to know when you are going through identity crisis, then you have to add life experiences.
100%.
And you have to have the support that comes with it.
100%.
You understand? So from there, I think you focus on the type of person that you wish to become. And then during this period, you actually realize that your habit shapes your identity and your identity shapes your habit. It's a two-way street, right? And then while in this street, while you are in this change, there is 3 levels of change. There is the identity change, there's the process change, and then there is the outcome change.
100%.
The outcome change, this is how, okay, so from this part, you created the identity that you wanted. Now you're bringing it out to the world.
Yes. But you cannot get the goal without going through the journey. So the journey is you having the identity, the new identity, and you adding to yourself by exploring more.
Exactly.
And then creating new habits, which is the process that you go through. And then from there, you get to the outcome that you show to the people.
One of my friends, who was going through identity crisis, he was very confused about everything.
Yeah.
And we always used to sit together and talk together. And the thing is, he always had, which was part of his identity. He procrastinate everything.
Yeah.
Everything is a procrastination from his side. So I told him this is the first thing that he has to take away, right?
Yeah.
So he used to say, I want to go work out. and he doesn't do it. So now part of your identity is you being a lazy person.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
I can't speak out public.
Yeah.
Right? So we actually went through it together, step by step.
You know, and you mentioning this right now also brings another part to solve the identity crisis, is you sitting with yourself, you know, reflection, to reflect and to think about what you do, which is also self-awareness in other words.
Very good. So analyzing yourself, yeah.
100%. Analyzing and introspecting yourself.
Yeah.
And once you analyze, you introspect yourself, now you know with the experiences you have, what you like, what you can become, what the goal is, and what the process is to get there.
And one of the main things, like you said right now, when you bring out your identity to the world, one of the things that people, they feel lost, especially when they come out to the society.
Yeah.
The thing that we see every time, people agree. All right, so imagine me, you, and a couple of other friends.
Yeah.
We decide to do something.
Yeah.
Right? So from there, if you don't like it, and then you agree, right? So now here, you agree with something that goes against your identity.
Yeah.
And later on, you said, you know, I was just doing this with y'all.
Yeah.
But actually, I didn't like it. I disagreed with it.
Yeah, it's a saying that you usually say, if you're friends with everyone, then you become an enemy to yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
100%. Make sure you guys always seek support if you're going through identity crisis. Just like Marcin said right now, he had one friend who was procrastinating. He told him to stop that and to become. So he helped him actually by the support that he gave for him to be self-aware of the procrastinating that's happening in case he wasn't. And yeah, man, multiple identities, man.
Multiple identities. I think a lot of people go through it. And it's just something totally fine.
Yeah.
You're having an identity in the house. You're having an identity outside of the house, which is true, with your friends, with your homies.
Yeah, we have an identity here on the studio as well.
Exactly.
Yes,
so
sir.
you actually notice that you have different identity wherever you go, because
100%.
like they say, there's a saying in Arabic, لكل مقام مقال.
ولكل حال موضع.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
So you start noticing your behavior change wherever you go. So like we said, your habits is your identity, and your identity is your habit.
Yeah, man. I'm not going to talk to you the same way I'm talking to my parents.
Exactly.
I'm not going to talk to you the same way I'm talking to a teacher at school.
Exactly.
It's just all different. But I think the challenge is to balance between those identities. Because, you know, if one day you bring your identity with your friends to the house, it's not going to be okay.
It's not the same. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's not the same situation. It's not the same mold for you to be in the same status hal. Exactly. So you have to change and you have to balance between those multiple identities. I think that's where the challenge is. And I think the more you master this, the more you become a great person, the more you have evolved. Or what's your input?
My input on this is, for everyone who's facing multiple identities, the most thing that you need to understand is you need to map your identity. By mapping your identity, what I mean is this.
Yeah.
Like we said, wherever you go, you have different habits and different behaviors, which is your different identities with the different people. So you need to have a small map right now.
Yeah.
With this group, I act in this way. I have this identity in this way, right?
100%.
So now you're being, like you said, analyzing yourself, right?
Yeah.
And from there, you can take the good and add it, and the bad and take it away.
100%.
And then, like we said, along the road, you're still just adding to who you are, to
100%.
the type of person that you wish to become, and not the things that you want to have in the world. And after balancing the multiple identities that you have, you start focusing in one thing, which will make you balance it in the right way as well. After mapping, of course, which is the type of person that you wish to become, and not the things that you want to achieve in life.
Yeah.
You know? So what was your intake about it?
You know, I think you balance the multiple identities is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Because in every situation, there's something to say, and also there's a way to say it. Depends on who's in front of you. And once you master this, once you map it out right, you know, you're self-aware about it, you're self-aware about your identities, you master them, you start evolving to be the best version of yourself that you are, and there will always be a better version that's waiting for you along the journey.
That's right. And don't forget, the best way to discover yourself is to be yourself along the journey.
100%. And you know, no one can be you but you. So make sure you stay true to yourself. Be true, be you. And with that being said, it was your boy Blue. And
of course, it's Marcin Nejim. And don't forget, like we just mentioned and Blue mentioned, the best way to discover yourself and to know yourself better is only to be yourself. And if you know anyone in society or your best friend, right, is going through identity crisis, and don't forget to give them the best support that they will need, and enjoy the journey going along and doing different experiences. It will add to you, and it will also add to the person who is going through the identity crisis. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share, and hopefully seeing you guys in our next episode. Thank you.